And I think the other thing that we've become really bad at doing is granting people the ability to think and change their mind. So now, if you change your mind, you're a hypocrite or a flip-flopper.
Yes.
Go back to one of my favorite historical movies, Pretty Woman. Julia Roberts is talking to Richard Gere. Her name is Viv in the movie, and she says, the bad stuff is easier to believe.
So what would your advice be for someone who may be stuck in the bad stuff?
You have to find people in your life who will affirm you.
But if connection were a color, what would it be?
Or
a texture?
I think connection has a texture to it, like it's tactile, you can feel it, you notice it.
Hello and welcome to Hello Moxie. I am so excited to be joined today by Jen Eisenreich. Jen and I met in the amazing heroic public speaking grad course.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh. And we just had the best time together. Wasn't that incredible?
It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And we were so lucky that our cohort was just amazing. And we're still tightly knit, and it was just a fabulous experience.
Yeah, like friends for life. When you go through an experience like that, because we all just shared our most vulnerable, transformative moments in our lives as we're crafting these speeches, and it was just such a connecting experience.
I want to say it's a little bit of trauma bonding. Because we all experienced ourselves through these very vulnerable places, and then we shared all these stories about ourselves, and then we're like, okay.
So true. Oh man, absolutely. Well, Jen, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you. I could go on and on, but I just remember one of the first, before I turn it over to you to tell, I just have to share. I remember that one of my first memories of you was in class, and I had gotten up in front of our small rehearsal group we had to share part of our speeches.
Yeah.
And I remember getting up and sharing. It was a very vulnerable part of my speech, and I had never said it out loud to anyone aside from my mirror. And I had gotten up there and I sat down, and you were sitting right next to me, and you reached over and you just put your arm around me. I'll never forget it. And it was just such a moment where I was felt so just safe in that moment. So thank you for giving that to me. It was amazing. So I'll always remember that.
Oh my gosh. I remember that moment too. And we just lean into each other, and it's something that has been just awesome.
Yeah. Well, tell our listeners about you. Tell us about
Okay. Well, I'm Jennifer Eisenreich. I'm the owner of Shift Show Communication. That's Shift with an F. And I am mainly a professional speaker.
Yes.
And I also do some writing. I'm working on a book that will be released, hopefully. Well, publishing takes forever, so we'll see when that happens. But I love to write, and I am from Pittsburgh. I've lived here most of my life, with a little stint in Arizona for a while. I have an amazing husband, Scott. My daughter, Alexa, lives in Brooklyn, and I have 4 amazing bonus kids and 3 grandchildren, and it's just a big, busy, active, awesome family. Before I created Shift Show and started speaking, I was a principal for 24 years and in education for 30. So that was really the biggest chunk of my life. I miss it tremendously, mainly the children and all of the people. It is a very busy, demanding, soul-sucking position. So I love what I'm doing right now.
I have a 10-year-old, Charlotte, and I have no doubt that if you were her principal, she would just have adored you. I can just see you. I know that you are just an amazing principal. And having heard you speak, I can vouch for what an incredible, powerful public speaker you are. And
thank you.
The message that you have, and we'll talk about that more, is just so needed, especially today. So I'm excited for you to share it. That's so cool. And my goodness, I didn't know your daughter lived in Brooklyn.
She does. She lives in Brooklyn. She's lived in New York since she was interning there during the pandemic in 2020. And
Mm.
then she graduated in 21 and moved there. We used to go to New York very often when she was younger. I just wanted her to see that there was
Mm.
a big world and all of the possibilities that she had. So it's probably my fault that she ended up moving there, but it's
Amazing.
fantastic. It's only about a 6-hour drive, and I love going there and seeing her and just knowing that she's brilliant and happy.
Yeah, I was just in Brooklyn this weekend. We biked from Midtown all the way into Brooklyn. It was my first time actually going to Brooklyn.
Wow.
I've gone to Manhattan. I can't even count the number of times I've been
Yeah,
in Manhattan. It was my first time in Brooklyn. I was like, I need to check this out. I need to go to Brooklyn.
it's
And
amazing.
beautiful. Yeah, we went to the Botanic Garden. It
Oh,
was
they're so beautiful.
lovely. Yeah.
Brooklyn is like all of Manhattan with just a little less buzz.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yes. And some of the neighborhoods were just so absolutely charming and full of character. It was
Gorgeous.
amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, and I would love to know about your book. Tell our listener, can you give a little tease about your book?
Yeah, I'm writing a book about connection, which is also
Mm.
what I speak about.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to help people who I'm going to take my glasses off for this. I'm trying to help people who want to talk about the political climate that we're in
Mm.
and kind of the mess that we find ourselves in, but they want to do it in a nonpartisan way. They
Oh,
want someone to kind of
yes.
frame for them how we got here and how we've become so disconnected and combative
Mm.
and divided. People love to say this is the most divided time in our nation's history. We've had a lot of really divided times. So,
Yeah.
I can't really say that it's the most divided time. We've had
I mean, the
some
Civil
really,
War,
hello.
right? Like, pretty divided.
Can you imagine if there had been social media in the Civil War?
Oh my gosh. I
There
honestly
would have
have
been a
never
whole
thought
new
about that.
twist. Whole new twist, yeah.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a fresh take on what's happening in a way that people can understand, in a way for them to look at other people so that they
Mm.
can see more than just a Democrat or more than just a
Mm.
Republican. They see a person with a history, and they learn to understand that everybody gets where they are in a way that makes perfect sense to them. So
Totally.
we're all different, and yeah, it stinks that we are so divided, but we can make it. We can come back together.
We can come back together. I believe that. I absolutely, and I think that's a powerful. There are so many people that are feeling that, Jen, right now.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
feeling it. A lot of times people don't feel like they can even be safe to share,
Yeah.
all that they're feeling. And it's just unfortunate that, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a dinner party at my house last month, and I knew that there were people that are going to be coming to the dinner party that had very divergent political views. And coming into it, there were several people that were coming that were potentially, at risk for the Doge layoffs, for example,
Oh gosh.
and other people who were very adamant and supportive of the Doge layoffs. And I was like, how do I navigate this? Because it was such a difficult topic, and I didn't want
Yeah.
people to come. And then all of a sudden, people start talking about it, and then there's fights and arguments and disagreements and everything. And I didn't know how to handle it.
It's
So,
so hard. And I think the other thing that we've become really bad at doing is granting people the ability to think and change their mind. So
mm,
now if you change your mind, you're a hypocrite or a flip-flopper.
yes.
So it's it's made it very difficult for people to talk about how they feel, because if even if you do bring up something that's thought-provoking and spot on, it's very hard to say, I've never thought about it that way. And I agree with that, because then the other side of the table is going to jump on you and, say bad things about you probably. So it's really
Yeah,
difficult.
it is.
Yeah,
Well, I can't wait to read this book.
me too.
Oh, man. So, besides your book and your lovely family and shift show with an F, what's lighting you up right now? What's one thing that's really lighting you up?
What is lighting me up right now? It's truly writing. That's the thing
Mm.
that's lighting me up. I've been doing a lot with AJ Harper, who was our speech coach,
Yeah.
writing coach, and she has so many amazing opportunities that she offers. And I'm doing her writing sprints right now, and she's
Ooh.
fabulous. She has such a good team behind her, and when I get on with those folks, it is just so supportive. And AJ is so brilliant and such a cool human. So
Sure
that's kind of
is.
lighting me up right now.
Ooh, I love
Yeah.
that. Mm. Amazing. Okay, well, I wanna know, Jen. So it's I think it's so fitting that you are like the connection, like, master, connection
Can we, what's a
extraordinaire.
connection queen?
The connection queen, yes, with all of and you have with all of your experience in the public school system, how challenging that can be to build connection. And I think it's so fitting that you are the connection queen. And on the podcast, we talk about like the connection that we have to the women in the past.
Yeah.
And so I would love to know from you, who is a woman in history that you feel very connected to? Tell us a little bit about who she is and maybe tell us a story about her.
Yeah. I really love Eleanor Roosevelt. She was tea lover too. She was very cool. I mean, she was fighting really an uphill battle, and
Mhm,
she led with such courage and compassion. And that she was in a time when it wasn't easy to do that either,
mhm,
especially being in the public eye all the time. She took a lot of criticism for the way that she looked. And
mm,
yet she came out and gave her all the time. And I think what inspires me the most about her is that she had a relentless focus on people,
mm,
and she focused on people's dignity and their
mm,
rights and their humanity. And she wasn't afraid to ask hard questions or stand up for difficult things. And that's something I try to carry into my work, just by, I talk to leaders about creating spaces where people feel seen and heard and valued and just connected to their workplace. And I
mm.
know that she worked to do that with our entire country. And she just was an amazing woman.
I love I read a biography about her a couple of years ago, and she was a very fascinating woman.
Yes.
And one of the things that's really cool is she wrote a daily newspaper column
Hmm.
called My Day,
Yeah.
which is so interesting. It was, I guess, syndicated by more than 100 newspapers. And she really, I think, showed us such like I think historically the first ladies have typically been a little bit more in the background, I
Yeah.
guess, but she wasn't. She like bravely stepped forward into her role and kind of created this new way to lead in that role, which was really
She
exciting.
wasn't afraid, and she gave that role the gravitas that I think it has today, and
Mhm.
was such a trailblazer.
Love her. And you know
Love
what's
her.
interesting too? She had such a her relationship with her husband was interesting. I remember when I was reading her book, one of the things that was really interesting is that during World War II, I guess there was that time when they had the Japanese internment camps
Hmm.
for the Japanese civilians,
Hmm.
and her husband supported those camps. And there's actually, I remember reading in her book, she was so fiercely opposed
Yes.
to that deeply, deeply. And that was like a really big source of, I guess, discord between them. She was vehemently opposed.
And she made that known to as many people as possible. And that
Mhm.
was truly a tragic is such an understatement. It's such a tragic time in our country for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And I appreciate her in the past tense having done that, because someone needed to stand up for them. And she was just amazing in doing so.
Yeah, I agree. I think she was a woman of principle. Like she
Hmm.
knew exactly what her values were and she was not afraid to stand up for them even when it was unpopular because at the time that was a fairly unpopular opinion. There was a lot of fear in the country and people were afraid of and she always led with humanity first,
And
you know.
imagine those dinner parties at the White House.
Yeah, no kidding.
The
I mean, I
tweets would have
think
been flying.
yeah, and I think isn't that interesting? Like what a beautiful example of like, she didn't always agree with her husband,
Hmm.
and still they were able to create this beautiful partnership. And I think
Because
to
she
your,
wasn't, yeah, I'm sorry, she wasn't
yeah.
disagreeable. She
Mhm.
disagreed, but she did so in a way that still allowed her husband and other people to be seen and heard. And that's what people want. And that because she
Mhm.
was able to do that, she was able to do so many more things and be so much more powerful in her life and in her work.
Because she wasn't disagreeable.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could. I need a story about her not being disagreeable. Do we have anything that we can do? Is there anything you can remember about her where
Hmm.
she led that way? Let's see.
I mean, I think what I mean by that, like you can disagree without being disagreeable means you can state your opinion
Hmm.
without name calling
Hmm.
and without finger pointing and making it about someone else.
Hmm.
So she stated her case. She stated it with, because she was such an amazing writer, she was able to use an economy of words. She was to the point, she was
Mm,
thoughtful, but she wasn't mean about it. And
mm,
it's hard. It's very hard for us to do that now, especially when you get behind a keyboard and a little bit of emotion pops in. You want to be like, you just want to attack people because you get so frustrated. And I'm sure she
yeah.
wanted to as well, but she knew how to keep it classy.
Keep it classy. Yeah. So, like amazing ChatGPT, I just have to say, I
Yeah.
love ChatGPT. So I just was so curious as we were talking about this, like, what is there a story from her history about her being disagreeable without being disagreeable? So I'm going to tell one that this is, let's see if ChatGPT is right. Someone's going to probably call me out on this and say, no, this is not
Oh,
true.
ChatGPT is my homie. I'm
I
sure it's right. I'm sure it's
know.
right.
So yeah, so this is really interesting. So I guess in the early days of the presidency, she invited a gathering to the White House with some of the president's closest political allies, and there was a prominent senator there from the South who was a staunch segregationist. And he made a comment, I guess, that was deeply offensive, that insinuated that African Americans were inferior to whites.
Ugh.
Yes. So rather than reacting in anger, she stayed calm and didn't rebuke the senator. Instead, she turned the conversation toward the idea of equality. So it
Mm.
wasn't about the person, it was about the idea,
The issue.
the issue. She
Yeah.
spoke softly but firmly about how the American ideal was built on the promise of liberty and justice for all people.
Yes.
So I thought that's an interesting, I think she didn't rebuke the person, but she went back to the idea. And that's such a great, like, I think about that. I'm like, how can we bring more of that kind of approach to our conversations where it's not a personal attack, but we're focusing on the idea
Yeah.
or the issue.
When you see two people duking it out and the first thing they do is turn to, well, you didn't, and well, you're not, and this is
Mhm.
what your part, when they start making personal attacks, I automatically discount most of what they're saying because they're
Yeah.
not speaking in fact, they are speaking in emotion and they're pointing the finger, which means when you're directing attention away from you, you don't have anything really quality to say. So I keep that in mind. And when the political talk shows come on Sundays after CBS Good Morning. Usually we last for about 15 minutes because that's what you see is
That's what you
so
see.
much finger pointing and blame. And it's not about your own ideas. It's not about the concept of what's happening. It's not about an ideal. It's truly an attack. And we need less of that because we've got plenty.
I agree, and it's becoming worse. Do
Yeah.
you think that happens more now because it gets more attention? And so because people are like, do you think why do you think people react that way? Like in the media, for example, do you think that that's just naturally that way? Or do you think there's some sort of like subconscious, like this is going to get more attention if we approach these issues personally rather than, I
I'm
don't
going to
know.
go back to one of my favorite historical movies, Pretty Woman,
I love
where
it.
where Julia Roberts
I love the
says,
turn this is taking. I can't wait for this connection.
Julia Roberts is talking to Richard Gere. Her name is Viv in the movie, and
Uh-huh.
she's talking about hard things that happened in her life. and he's trying to make her feel like a good person. And she says, the bad stuff is easier to believe. And it is. It really, it's that whether you're thinking about yourself, whether you're thinking about others, it's depending on who the person is, I guess. But I
Mm,
think it's people want confirmation of what they already think. And
mm,
so they're speaking, at least on a political talk show, I think, and when we're speaking in political discourse, that we are speaking to one side or the other. We want to discount one side and affirm the other. So we'll speak to people in a way that they'll identify with us. You figure at least half of them will, whichever way you go. And so people dig in.
yeah.
And when they dig in order to rise above all the other noise that's happening, you have to say something pretty sensational. So I think
Mm.
that's what people are trying to do is be sensational, not in the good way.
The bad stuff is easier to believe. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you think about anyone who has like a any sort of an agenda, a political
Yeah.
party, whatever, it makes sense that people would hold on to that because people rally around that
Or even
easier.
just something, an inner battle that you have. It's very hard to let
Mhm.
go of it because it's just you've made yourself believe it.
So
So,
true.
yeah, Viv was a philosopher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never thought of her as a philosopher, but my
Oh,
mind is
yeah.
completely open now. So cool.
And if you rewatch it, it's funny because, as a Gen Xer, that was
Uh-huh.
such a movie of our like early adulthood. But when you look at it now, it is so dated. Oh my gosh. You'll be like, this is ancient.
I need to watch it again. That's one of those movies you can watch over and over and over and over again. You know,
Oh
like do you have
gosh.
like I have like this like list of movies that I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, if I'm in a mood where I just need to, fun something fun and light, this is my list of movies and that is on it.
Hugely.
That movie
In
is on it.
undergrad and college, we watched it like
Mhm.
a disgusting amount of times. I mean, like we basically had it memorized. I still know the
Mm,
first line.
mm. So, what would your advice be for someone who may be stuck in the bad stuff? Like
Stop it.
thinking it.
Stop it. Stop thinking that. It's so hard. It is
Mm,
so hard to do that.
mhm,
You have to find people in your life who will affirm you, and you
mm,
have to listen. You have to lean into your faith, whatever it is,
mhm,
and you have to believe. This is going to sound so trite. You have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who's been with you all the time,
mm,
and you've made it so far. No matter how old you are, you're there, you've made it, and you're okay. And you can do it. But it is very, very easy, I know from personal experience, to just dip down into a valley that it's so
yeah,
hard to pull yourself out of. So you
yeah,
just have to feel it while you're in it
mhm,
and understand it's one of the things that happen in life. You have highs and lows. And when you're in a low, you're in a low. So give your body what it needs. Try to make this is weird, but make sure you're hydrated because being
Yes.
dehydrated can really mess you up. It really can. And when you
Mm,
hydrate, it allows your brain to function better because our brains really trip us up. So
mm.
if that's one easy thing you can do when you're in a down space or a down spot is just drink
Isn't that
water.
funny? The simple things. Drink
Yes.
water. So I'm gonna drink some water and hydrate.
Excellent. Here, cheers. Clink.
Cheers. Cheers to hydration.
That's what's wrong with people who grew up in like the 70s and the 80s. We were dehydrated like all the time. Kids now, like every kids are carrying like a
It's true.
huge
They've got their
Stanley with them
Stanley
like
with like the little toppers.
all
You
day. We
know,
were
I
in
mean,
we were in elementary school and you got to go to the water fountain and like the teacher would count to 3 and pull your hair up and like that's enough. Like
I don't
once a day. We were dehydrated,
It's so
Nicole.
true.
That's
I
what's
don't
wrong with
remember
us.
ever bringing a water bottle to school. You're so right.
Ever.
And now I'm like, Charlotte, don't forget your water bottle. You got to bring your water bottle. And then she
I
comes
know.
home and she doesn't have it. It's not empty. And I'm like, you didn't drink it all. Drink your water
See? You're just
bottle.
caring for her mental health.
It's so true. And it's the simple things like that,
Yeah.
start with the simple things first, right?
Right,
It's
right,
always the
right.
simple things first.
Yes.
Great advice. I love that so much. Mm. Oh, if so, I have a question. If connection were a color, what would it be? Or
Is
a
rain
texture?
Oh gosh. The first thing that comes to my mind is like a rainbow blanket, but rainbow is a cop
Oh,
out. So, I think connection is has a texture to it, like it's tactile, you can feel it, you notice it. It's there are some things, I guess for everybody it's different. So, there are different kinds of throw rugs or carpets that you stand on and different surfaces that just make you like, oh, I love stepping on that. And I think that's what it is. It's just that feeling
mm,
that you're grounded into that sensation and
mm.
you've made a connection with another person. You're seen, you're heard. And the color is, I think the color is like a dusty, rosy pink.
Love that. I love the visual of standing on a dusty rose pink rug and just being grounded. I love that you said it's grounding.
Yeah.
There's something about seeing someone else and
Hmm.
really seeing them and them seeing you at the same time. It's
Yeah.
just such a magic thing.
It's hard. It takes a lot of brain power to look at another person. A new word that I learned, I'm like a word geek. I learned this word Sonder, and it means Sonder is to be, oh my gosh, it's in my speech. I better remember it.
I feel
It
like I
means
saw
to
this too somewhere.
it means
Yeah.
wonder. It's the realization. Oh, well, the meaning is it's the realization that everyone has a life as full as your own.
Mm.
So as full and complex as your own. And so for me, it's like seen plus wonder equals Sonder. And it's
Ooh.
we see so many people in the world. You can't do that with everyone. But when someone's in front of you, whether you know them well or not, you have to realize they're coming to you with their own set of chemistry,
Mhm.
neurology, biology, lived experiences, what happened that day, hormones, what they ate, what they drank, how they slept. Like you're not just talking to a face. It's not like a dog passing a dog and you just wag your tail or bark. You have to really see that entire person, especially if you're in any kind of leadership or if you're in a relationship with that person. And we get so used to being wrapped in ourselves and
Mm.
accomplishing what we want to accomplish with another person, with someone we're in a relationship with, a customer service person, that we don't look at the other person and we don't think of all of those things. And someone told me once, when you're on an airplane, remember that everyone you're with has a story that would stop your heart.
Mm.
Everyone. So you have to look at them and understand they have a really complex history and they're deserving of so much grace. Everyone is deserving of so much grace. And we are really quite challenged at giving it to people.
That was so beautiful. How have you been able to cultivate that feeling of being able to connect with other people in that way where they feel seen, even when it's difficult, and to be able to really what advice would you give from your own experience of maybe moments when it's been difficult for you to
Hmm.
connect with someone because of whatever may be going on and how you
Yeah,
were able to break through? Because it can be hard sometimes to connect.
it can. Ask
Mm,
questions.
mm,
So if I had a parent who was really upset about something,
mm,
it's very hard to talk someone down who's advocating for their child because I mean, what else is,
yeah.
that's the most important thing you have. So when you ask questions and they have a chance to speak and tell you more about what's happening, and if you can say something like, tell me a little bit more about that,
Mm.
Or when do you think that started? Just to keep digging until they bring it down a little bit. And then they see, oh, this person's really interested in what I have to say. Like
Yeah.
they're not just trying to talk me out of it. Asking questions really brings it down. It gets you to the base of things, makes you see, usually the issue is not the issue. There's something under there that's underlying. So you're more likely to get there. So
Mm.
asking questions is my best advice.
I love how you said, "Tell me more."
Hmm.
There, I love that question. There's something about when you're talking to someone and you say, "Tell me more about that." It opens up a floodgate because they feel like, "Oh, this person cares about what I have to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
They want to know." And it's that being seen.
Hmm.
It's like once someone feels seen, and that's like it immediately creates safety for them to be able
Yeah.
to trust
Yeah.
you. And when people feel trusted, their guard comes down.
Hmm.
Like their guards up and they're all defensive. But the minute you start to see them and they feel that you see them,
Hmm.
then it's just like, okay, I
The
can trust
Dalai
this
Lama
person.
has a really great quote. He says that people want to be heard, seen, and loved in that order.
Mm, people want
So,
to be heard, seen, and loved in that
yeah.
order.
So when you just listen, like I just talked right over you, but
No, no.
but when you really listen to people, something changes in them.
What have you noticed most of all that's changed in them when you've connected with people on that level?
Almost, like almost a sense of relief
Mm,
that okay, that you're getting me, and and it just brings down all of the anxiety that you're feeling, if you are feeling anxiety or whatever negative feelings that you're having. When someone wants to know more, you're like, okay, they're listening and I can explain it.
mhm,
So I think that's what it does. It's just a deep breath.
mm. Which is so important. Like we talk about the simple things, like
Hmm.
drinking water,
Yeah.
but deep breathing seems very simple,
Yeah.
and it is, but it's so, I think, in our society, like if we really think about it in our relationships, like,
There's a whole book
right?
about breath.
Yeah. But sometimes I think we get caught up here. We're
Yeah,
anxious
definitely.
and we have to intentionally almost
And our
force
ears are up
ourselves.
here because we're stressed and they're up
Mhm.
around our ears and we're so tight. And then when you can just breathe and feel good or feel connected to the other person, when you feel okay, it's such a relief.
Yeah. And it's
Mm,
so healing to your nervous system.
so much.
Yeah. Huh. So good, Jen. My gosh. So I'd love to know. I know you just love Mr. Rogers.
Adore,
Oh my
adore. I have a
gosh.
little shrine up here
Yeah,
for people who are watching the video.
tell us a little about your connection to Mr. Rogers and
Well, like any kid in the 70s, we didn't have a lot of things to watch, and
mm,
he was there every day. And since I lived in Pittsburgh, he is a native Pittsburgher. And my next door
woo.
neighbor, whoop, yep, my next door neighbor worked on the set of his show. So he would bring home records. And I know he went to his house one time, and my brothers got to meet him there at the house, but I wasn't born yet. I'm over it. It's okay. And
Wow. That's
so,
incredible.
yeah. So there was that. And then he filmed his going to school special. It's like a series of, I think, 5 episodes at my elementary school. So he was at our school for about 2 weeks, and he rode my bus with my amazing bus driver, Gracie, who I adored.
Mm,
And he sat on that bus and talked to kids, whether the camera was on or off, just asking questions in his beautiful way of speaking that he had.
mm,
And he was so genuine, and it just it just touched my soul. And then he told a story. I'll never forget watching it. He remember picture, it was like a screen that said hello, and he would go over and tell a little story in front of it. So after the video of him on the bus, he goes over to the screen and says, there was one little girl who loved Gracie, the bus driver, so much that every day when she got off the bus, she would give her a kiss on the cheek. I was like, that's me. That is me. Like, I was so excited, even though he didn't say my name. I was like, he knows. And I
Wow.
felt like that was connection. Like, when I look back at it, I loved connecting with people even when I was little. So, anyway, then he spoke at our college graduation.
Mm,
And then in the two schools where I was a principal, we did some research with the University of Pittsburgh Education Department, the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and the Fred Rogers Foundation. And they were looking for little things in classrooms that made the biggest difference for kids. And don't you know, they found out it was connection.
mm,
And it was the little interactions, the small, it's actually a program that they developed called Simple Interactions. And it's about the way that teachers just connect with their kids, maybe putting their hand on their back, looking at them when they ask a question. So eye contact, a shared smile, just kind
mm.
words, words of affirmation. Those are the things that make the biggest difference in a classroom coming from the teacher. And those are the things that as adults really make us feel warm and heard and fuzzy too. So Simple Interactions is a great program. But back to Mr. Rogers, oh my gosh, he just was a saint. I really feel like he was a saint. And if you watched his documentary, the one about him, or the movie, or you look at any of his talks, it's so moving. And I don't know why so many, I mean, I do. I weep when I see him speaking. I don't know if it's a longing for that message of safety or if it's that we miss him and his outlook so much. But he was such a pure human. And he was like that in real life. Anybody who has met him will tell you. And I don't know of anyone who's like that right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean,
At least in the public eye. No, I'm sure that
yeah,
there are people in the world who are just kind and sweet and genuine. In the public eye, I just don't know. You know, you want to say like the Pope. I don't know. But
yeah,
he's not really giving us everyday messages and
yeah, you're
talking to
right.
children in a way that they can understand and making that connection. Like, he talked about things that we wouldn't talk about at the dinner table at that time. He was
Mm,
talking about death, divorce, assassination,
mhm.
um, things that are hard for little kids, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, going to school is hard. And he didn't sugarcoat it. Like in his series, in our back to school series, he's talking to a kid about school. He's like, I don't really like it. And he kept it in there because it was real. He's like, well, tell me what you don't like about it. Well, we got to do a lot of work, hardly ever get to go outside. And he would share that. He wasn't trying to hide anything.
Mm. Yeah, I can't really think of anyone who really fills that space right now. I mean, the first person that comes to mind is Oprah Winfrey, but she doesn't talk to children really, like on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis like that.
yeah.
Um,
Oprah's, oh, she's pretty wise. She has some good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So listen, that's like the understatement of the century that she has. Oprah has some good stuff. She's fine. She's pretty
She's
wise. I
okay.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, she just like she is a font of she knows how to frame things and put it into words in a way that people get it, and that's why she resonates with so many people. She
Mm,
connects too. It doesn't matter who it's with. She sits
yeah.
down with them and is like, "Let me look into your soul."
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Mr. Rogers,
the man.
the man, the myth, the legend. I loved
Yeah,
what you shared about the study that you did. Again, it just goes back to the simple things. Those
yeah,
little simple moments, drinking your water, taking deep breaths, looking people in the eye,
yeah.
giving them a touch on the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
sharing a smile with them.
Truly,
Like it make you know when you break it down that way, it really is. We don't have to overthink it.
we
Connection is
don't.
it's so simple.
You know what you
It's
have to
simple.
do though? Got
Tell
to put
me.
your phone down.
Oh, yes.
And
The
it's
phone.
so hard. It's addictive. I don't think people should feel tremendously guilty about it. It's made to be addictive.
Mhm.
And, when you get a minute in the car or on the train or you're in it, you're on your phone. If you're waiting in the airport, so you're not going to have conversations with people around you. And
Mhm.
peopling is hard because people are difficult and they have a lot, but if there's nothing else to do and you turn to the person beside you, there are some small degrees of connection. There are degrees of, 6 degrees of separation. You're probably connected to that person in some way, in some small way, and you can learn something in the smallest conversations. You can learn something, or you can help someone.
Mhm.
And those are moments that are just so meaningful. And if your head's down and you're just looking at your phone, you're going to miss it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I love how you invited grace about phones because you're right, they are addicting. They're meant to
Yeah.
be literally dopamine hit every
Yeah.
time, you
Right.
know? And so acknowledging that, like, look, this is, the reality. The reality is these devices are addictive and
Yeah.
it is
Like raise
hard
your
for
hand
us.
if you play a stupid game. Like I play some of the dumbest. They're like I'm into
Oh,
like the very simple like dots and squares and it's
oh, how funny.
but it's numbing. You get to numb
Mhm.
out, which is
Yes.
not great. It's not great for us to do that. But you get the dopamine hits. It feels
Mhm.
good. The games are built to be addictive. Everything about it. When you hand a kid a device, you hand them an addiction.
It's so
And
true.
that's a hard thing to reconcile. And, when my daughter Alexa was growing up, it was pre cell phone era, at least until I think she had a flip phone in fifth grade, maybe
Mhm.
sixth grade. No texting. It was just a flip phone. And I think it was a pink razor. She loved it so
Oh, I
much.
remember the
But
pink razor. I
yeah, yeah.
remember.
But
Yeah.
I didn't have to deal with that when she was little and in elementary school. And I'm sure I would have struggled with it as well as a
Yeah, I
parent.
think as humans, yeah, I mean, I have a teenager and it
Hmm.
is so like it's so hard. I mean,
Yeah.
the good thing is at her school, they're not allowed to have phones in the classroom. So they
Yeah.
have like a
Good.
little thing where they have to check it into this little thing when they go in and leave, which as a parent I'm relieved about. Like
Yeah.
that's great, but you hit the nail on the head too, is like our kids are modeling what they see in their parents too. And so sometimes I
100.
think like, oh my gosh, like if she's on her phone, she's learning that from me. I've let her know it's acceptable because that's what I do. Um, and I can totally relate to just anytime I'm trying to do deep work, it's so much harder to do deep work now because the phone. And I recognize it. I'll be like working on it and then what's going on? I gotta check.
Yeah. I read a study that said that our, I'm not going to get it right, but that our attention span right now is basically like 15 seconds before we think of something else, unless you're really in a state of flow,
Yeah.
and creativity, that it's like 15 seconds, maybe it's 2 minutes. It's short. And if you really think about it, you can change the song, change the setting, change the light, change
Yeah.
the temperature. You're wondering what's going on. There are 100 different apps you can look at. Like it is hard. We're all so distracted.
Mhm. What do you think is one thing we can do as parents, as adults, as humans to lessen the pull, the attachment, the addiction that we have to our devices?
I don't think we can lessen it. I think we just have to manage it. I think that we have to set boundaries
Mm,
and stick to them, and to help everybody who you're working with to set boundaries understand that, oh my gosh, it's a Mr. Rogers quote. It's you I like.
mm,
It's like it's you. I can't be with you when we're on our phone. And I love you and I want me time. I want you time together. So let's schedule it. So instead of saying we're going to put the phone away, let's say we're going to schedule time just for us.
So instead of something being removed, you're adding.
Yeah. You have to have
Mm.
a replacement behavior or it won't work. So,
Yeah.
and it just has to be a conscious choice. And you have to really think about what it does to you. It
Mhm.
rewires kids' brains. And it rewires ours are a little bit more difficult because, our neural pathways are so much more cemented. Not that we can't change, it's just a little more difficult. I think for us, it doesn't really support what I'm saying. I think it's just harder for kids
Yeah.
to break those habits once they're set.
Mm. Such great advice to add quality time
Hmm.
and really schedule that out. I think that's lovely. And I think too, noticing the different, like for me, noticing the difference in how I feel too. Like when
Hmm.
I'm looking at my device, how I feel versus when I am sitting there present with my child playing a game with her.
Yeah. It's
Like
this
there's a difference in feeling. Like,
like an undercurrent of guilt maybe, or like, I
mm,
know my addiction is making me do this. You're conscious of it.
you are. And it's
Yeah.
not like it totally like this thing. I like half the time I want to throw it in the river, like
Right.
we know it's not great for us.
And
But I
here's the
know
thing.
whenever I'm spending time with my child, I never feel like that. When I'm
Right. You
on
don't
my
want to throw
phone, I'm
her in
like,
the river.
oh, I love it and I hate it. But when I'm with my child, it's not that. When I'm with her, I
Yeah.
just love it and I just want to be with her. And I hear her laugh and I see her smile light up and I see her being funny and and it's precious.
I wonder if we set an alarm like every 2 hours on our phone that says, Charlotte needs you,
Ooh.
or,
Mm,
Jackson loves you. So that popped up and you looked at it. And I think I'll challenge anyone to do it. I
mm,
don't know if I have the courage to do it. I'm going to try it. But
mm.
that's scary because then you have to look at that and actually decide, I'm going to look the other way. So maybe that's a challenge that I'll give people, is to set an alarm, at least in the evening, for
Mm.
every hour or two, just a reminder how much your kids need you and love you, or your spouse or your dog or cat.
I love the way you framed that because that's so true. The people in
Yeah.
our lives, they need us.
Yeah.
We
Big
need to
time.
remember that they need
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Mm,
Big time. There's, they've
mm,
they've talked about, I say they, research has called different generations of parents different things. Remember the lawnmower parents, the
mm,
helicopter parents?
mhm,
I read something that referred to families now as roommate parents,
mm,
where you're just kind of like rooming together, don't really eat meals together that often. You come
mm.
home and just go to your own place and just peace out on your phone. And it's like that for most of the evening. And I wish grace on everyone too who is in that situation, because everyone's dealing with hard things and you want to numb out. You want to escape a little bit.
Mhm.
But that's what's happening. As you know, when it happens all the time, that's what's happening, is that people are really just roommates so often. And that's sad. That's very sad.
Yeah, and I think the pressures are only going to become worse over time with AI.
Mm.
With the fact, I mean, I was just talking with a colleague last week about the fact that now you can leverage your AI to be your therapist. You can leverage AI to even be a substitute for your spouse. And so if your spouse is showing up in a human way, maybe they're having a bad day and they're like irritated or going through menopause or whatever, like you're human. You have
Yeah.
weaknesses and you're showing up a certain way and they're not responding to you in the way that you want them to. So what do? You go to your AI and
What
your
can I
AI
do? And
spouse
yeah.
is always going to be friendly and supportive and tell you exactly what you want to hear. And I'm just like, that is terrifying to me because there's something in the conflict. There's something in the act of humanly having to sacrifice and learn and that you get when you have to be with another human
Yeah.
and actually navigate through those challenges together that connects you, that teaches you. And you're losing that the more we isolate ourselves, and it's going to become even harder,
Yeah.
even harder.
If you've used ChatGPT for any amount of time, it's getting more and more personal.
Yep.
It picks up on your style. It picks up on the things that you're asking about. And it starts to speak a little bit more like you. Mine said oof to me the other day. I was like,
Totally.
what?
Mine says beautiful all the time, and I use
Uh,
that word all the time. I'm like, that's so
right?
beautiful. That's so beautiful. It's like, oh, that's a beautiful idea, Nicole. I'm like, this
You're
is
like,
weird.
merp. If
Oof.
mine says merp, then I will be truly disturbed.
I don't think I've ever heard that word merp.
Merp, I say it all the time.
That's
It's
so
meaningless. It's just a
cute.
meaningless word.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been such a great illuminating conversation.
So fun. I love
I love
talking
it.
to you just
Yeah.
about deep things and just anything.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I would love for you to share with our listeners what's one final word of advice you can give in the spirit of connection, or one final, maybe even a story or a memory or anything that you think of when you think of connection that our listeners could really take home and just eat up.
I'll I'll lean back on Mr. Rogers since we
Mm,
spoke about him,
yeah.
that I don't know what his magic was. It was a mix of caring, faith, humanity, kindness, warmth, wisdom. I attribute some of his beauty to a musical background.
Mm,
And he was so quiet and wise and patient. He embodied the spirit of everything good and kind, and truly the fruit of the spirit. And
mm,
I think his ability to connect inspired so many people. And I just hope that his legacy continues and that we continue to learn about him and see him talk about things that are difficult and embrace that spirit.
mm.
And then one last thing is I thought I did some thinking about what Moxie really meant since
Yeah.
we're on the Moxie pod.
Yeah.
I think it is guts plus resilience plus charm all rolled into one. It's just
Ooh.
your I
God's
like
resilience and charm.
yeah, I think that's what it is. There's a hotel chain in New York called Moxie, and they're it is kind of like gutsy. It's beautiful. It's like right in there. So I love it. And
Mm.
I think you have lots of Moxie.
Thanks. I think you do too, Jen. God's resilience and charm. So you're the first one on the show that's ever mentioned the word charm. And I
Ooh.
love that because I think it's totally true. Like when you think of
Otherwise, like just guts and resilience can be like bleh, can be kind of in your face. But
so
when you
true.
wrap in a little bit of charm with it, I just remember in old movies, I'm saying that gal's got moxie.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that's a little bit different than gumption,
Uh
right?
huh.
Beautiful. I love that. Guts, resilient, and charm. Thank you for sharing that. You're the second one. I had my last guest on and I forgot to ask him the question at the very end. They're like, you forgot to ask me what Moxie means to me. And I'm like, oh, darn it.
That's why I just thought I'd
So,
roll it in.
yes, I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Jen. It's been an absolute delight. And until next time, say hello, Moxie. That's a wrap for today's episode of Hello Moxie. I hope you felt that unbreakable thread connecting you to the women of the past, to the trailblazing pioneers of today. Their stories of audacity, resilience, and courage are a powerful reminder of what's possible for you when you choose to live with Moxie.